Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi, good morning. My name is Narafika Sakina, and I'll be first presenter presenting on about introduction to the audiolingual method. So what is the audiolingual method? So basically, the audiolingual method is the way of teaching approaches or teaching ways that has been initially focused on speaking proficiency or speaking skills. So the main focus of this method was to shape the habit using certain structures, patterns, and verbs through drilling and repetition. And also it helped with general extensive exposure to the example that we needed to be recreated later. So by developing this habit is supposedly to help students to improve their speaking skills and also work on the language acquisition like pronunciation, how to pronounce this word better, how to pronounce this in the sentence, and also avoiding speech error while speaking. So these are the more on the psycholinguistics part.
Let's go back in time for a moment. Specifically, to the 1940s, during World War II, the US Army had a big problem. They needed their soldiers to learn foreign languages, not for fun, but for survival, for missions, and for communication in war zones. So, they developed a method called the Army Method, a super practical way to train soldiers in speaking and understanding languages quickly. This became the foundation of what we call now, which is Audiolingual method. But the story doesn't end there. After the war, a linguist named Karl Fries stepped in. He believed that language learning isn't about memorizing vocabulary lists, but it is also about forming good speaking habits. He introduced the oral oral approach, where students listen, repeat, and drill sentence patterns until they become automatic. His famous quote was, "Language should be taught using intensive oral drilling of its basic patterns." In other words, repeat, repeat, and repeat again until it sticks. This method was also backed by behaviorist psychology, especially ideas from B.F. Skinner. According to behaviorism, language learning is just like training a habit. The more you practice and get feedback, the more fluent you become. The audiolingual method quickly became popular in the 1950s and 60s, but in the 70s it started to fade out. Why? Because Noam Chomsky came in and said, wait, language isn't just habit, it's also about thinking and creativity, and that changed everything. Still, the audiolingual method made a huge impact. It reminded teachers that listening and speaking are just as important as reading and writing, and that's something we still value today.
Next, jumping into how actually does audiolingual method works in classroom. In audiolingual, students learn by listening and repeating the phrase or sentence over and over again. To give you a better idea, in a class, the teacher gives an example. I am eating an apple. Hence, the sentence will be repeated by the students over and over again. Teacher will help the students if they have any problems in pronouncing it. With audiolingual, students are able to learn vocabulary and grammar indirectly. Singing is also an example of audiolingual method in our daily life. When you are trying to sing a song, first you will listen to the melody and the lyrics of the song. Then you will try to sing it repeatedly with the correct melody and the lyrics. And finally, you are able to sing the song perfectly.
For this part, I would like to explain about the principles that related to audiolingual method. First is listening and speaking. The most notable feature of audiolingual method is that listening and speaking. It is more important than reading and writing because listening and speaking is the basic knowledge of all language activities. Speaking is primary, meanwhile reading and writing come from listening and speaking. Secondly, instructions are given in the target language. It can help learners understand the language structures and vocabulary in context. Even if students initially do not fully understand all of the language used, they will begin to make connection between words, phrases, and meanings over time, leading to better comprehension. Thirdly, errors are carefully avoided. The method is rooted in behavioral psychology, which suggests that language learning is a process of forming habit through reinforcement. Correct language use is rewarded, for example, by praising or further practicing, while incorrect use is corrected to prevent the formation of bad habits. For the example of bad habit is such as pronunciation issue. This happens when students keep practicing incorrect pronunciation without correction. This will be hard to undo the mispronunciation. Last but not least is teacher as an orchestra. The teacher plays a central role by modeling correct language use, which student then will initiate. Teacher can use any technique like repetition, substitution drills, question and answer drills, and transformation drills to build fluency. For instance, if teacher wants to use repetition, teacher will say, "I want to go to the toilet," then student will repeat the same sentences as teacher did. Focus on fluency through practice. The method aims to make learners fluent in using specific grammatical structures and sentence patterns. However, creative use of language or spontaneous conversation is less emphasized compared to accuracy and repetition of fixed structures. The next principle is control vocabulary, which is limited vocabulary is introduced in a controlled and systematic way. Only essential and commonly used words are introduced, and learners are practice them in context through drills and repetition. Is audiolingual method can be considered as collaborative learning? It is no actually. This is because audiolingual method is typically teacher-centered compared to collaborative learning. It is more to student-centered. In audiolingual method, the teacher plays an active role in presenting language input, modeling correct language use, and controlling the flow of the lesson. Students are mainly passive participants who repeat and practice language structure in a controlled environment. The second reason is why audiolingual method is not considered as collaborative learning is audiolingual method is more focused on individual practice compared to group interaction. In the audiolingual method, students typically practice language structures individually, focusing on repetition and accuracy, while some pair work or group activity can be included. But still, the primary goal is individual mastery of language form through drill and pattern practice. Last but not least, learning goals. The goal of audiolingual method is primarily to develop fluency and accuracy in specific language structure through repetition practice. It is about mastering the correct form of language through repetition and drills. Meanwhile, collaborative learning, the goal is often to develop critical thinking, communication skill, and the ability to work effectively in group.
So, which students are suitable to learn using the audiolingual method? Audiolingual method works really well for beginner learners. It focuses on repetition and controlled practice, which helps students build a strong foundation in basic language skills, like greeting, common phrases, and important vocabulary. It is also great for students who need to use the language in real-life situations. For example, those who are traveling or working abroad can benefit from learning how to ask for directions, order food, or have simple conversations. Next, advanced learners. These students have moved beyond the basics and are looking to refine their language skills. They need opportunities to explore authentic communication, understand cultural nuances, and use idioms in context. However, because audiolingual method relies heavily on drills and repetition, it may not be enough for them to develop the fluency or creativity required for real-life conversations. Lastly, Audiolingual method might not be suitable for students who prefer a more active role in their learning. If a student thrives in interactive and collaborative settings, the teacher-centered approach of audiolingual method can feel too passive. These students might benefit more from method that promote spontaneous conversation, encourage critical thinking, and allow them to have more control over their learning experience.
Now we talk about advantage of audiolingual method. First, we have constant drills make students remember the material for a very long time. The second, students have very good pronunciation as it is taught straight from the beginning. Third, students also get a lot of context about the culture of the language. They are learning through exposure to dialogues and text. The fourth, we have no translation is allowed to teach vocabulary, and students are encouraged to use foreign language and speak. Now, let us move on to the disadvantage parts of audiolingual method. First, students overlearn the information but can't really use it fluently outside of the memorized patterns. Second, not enough attention is paid to the skills that are not oral. Therefore, writing suffers a lot. Too little grammar and spelling exposed leads to a lot of writing mistakes. The third one is students don't get an explicit presentations of grammar, which is needed sometimes. Thus, some grammar rules may stay vague. The fourth one is errors are not allowed, and the students are pressured to reproduce the examples given by the teacher with no mistakes. Now we have limitations of audiolingual methods. The first one is it is emphasizes repetition and drills over real life communications. So learners may struggle to use the language in authentic, spontaneous situations. The second one is since it is focused heavily on grammar patterns and structure, students may not build a broad or flexible vocabulary for everyday use. The third one is the repetitive drills can become boring and leads to rote memorization rather than meaningful learning or language understanding. The last one is the method mainly targets speaking and listening, often at the expense of developing reading and writing proficiency. So, the first technique of audiolingual method is repetition. Repetition involves having students listen to and repeat a sentence or structure multiple times, either in groups or individually. This process helps students reinforce correct pronunciation, intonations, and grammar use. For example, when teachers say book, the student have to repeat book. When teachers say I am eating an apple, student have to repeat I am eating an apple. So, good morning, students. Alright, today I'm going to teach you about repetitions. Okay, so I will say one word. You have to repeat what I say just after I say that. Okay. So the first word is book. Can Afika, you please repeat what I said just now?
Book.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, the second one is I am eating an apple. Can someone else repeat what I said just now? Okay, yeah, sure.
I am eating an apple.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next is corridors. Corridors is a technique where the whole class participates in repeating the sentence or structure at the same time rather than individually. This helps reduce the anxiety some students may feel about speaking in front of others and allows the teacher to correct the group as a whole. For example, when teachers say, I am going to the store, the student, which is the whole class, are going to repeat the same sentences as I am going to the store.
For the second part, I will teach you about choral drills. Okay, so it's same as the previous one. I will say one sentences. You have to repeat what I say. Alright. So the first one is I am going to the store.
I am going to the store.
Very nice. Okay, the second one. I am going to supermarket with my mother.
I am going to the supermarket with my mother.
Yes. Okay, for the third one. I'm going to basketball court with my dad.
I am going to the basketball court with my dad.
Yeah, so nice.
Moving on with the substitution drills. Substitution drills is a technique where students replace a word or phrase in a sentence with a new one given by the teacher. This activity helps students to practice sentence structure and apply vocabulary in context. For example, the teacher gave a sentence, "She is eating an apple." The teacher also asked the students to change the pronouns of the sentence. The response of the students might be, "He is eating an apple."
Alright, for the third part, we will learn about substitution drills. Okay, for the first example is, she is eating an apple. Okay, repeat together.
She is eating an apple.
Okay, great. Okay, for the second one is, he is eating an apple.
He is eating an apple.
Okay, can someone please raise your hand for the past tense ones? Okay, please thank you.
Using the same,
Yeah, yes.
she was eating an apple.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next is transformation drills. In transformation drills, students practice changing a sentence from one form to another while keeping the same meaning. This helps learners understand how to manipulate the structure of sentences. For example, when teacher said, "She is going to the store," so the student will say, "She is not going to the store," meaning that the learners or the students understand how to change from a sentence to another form of sentence. Now, let's change it to a negative form. It is when I say she is not going to the store, so the student will say she will go to the store. Same goes to the future tense. When the teacher say she will go to the store, while the student will say she will not go to the store.
Okay, for the following part, we will learn about transformation drills. Okay, so there are three examples. The first one is positive sentences, and the second one is negative sentences, and the third one is future sentences. Okay, so let's just move on to the first is positive sentences, which is you have to repeat the sentences what I say. Okay, is she is going to the store. So repeat together.
She is going to the store.
Okay, nice. Okay, for the second one is negative form, which is the sentences is she is not going to the store.
She is not going to the store.
Nice. Okay, for the future ones is she will go to the store.
She will go to the store.
Great.
Last but not least, backchaining. Backchaining is a teaching technique where a long sentence is broken down and built up from the end to the beginning. This method is especially useful for helping students learn longer or more difficult sentences step by step. It reduces pressure, builds confidence, and improves pronunciation and fluency. Let's look at an example using this sentence. She is reading the book. We begin with the last word, book. Next, we say reading the book. And finally, she is reading the book. By repeating and adding each part slowly, students can focus on one chunk at a time. This makes speaking feel easier and more natural.
Let us move on to the last spot, which is the back chaining. Okay, so I will give a sentences. So the words I will call you out to repeat is from the last words. So the sentences I will give is she is reading the book. So the first word you have to repeat is book. So repeat together. 1, 2, 3.
Book.
Okay, good. The second one is reading the book.
Reading the book.
Okay, nice. Okay, for the last one is the whole sentences for just now I taught it is she is reading the book.
She is reading the book.
Yes, nice. And